Okay, so we're live. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world, of course, you are connecting from. My name is Carolina Pastor. I'm the marketing manager for Legos Global Hospitality Education in Switzerland. And first of all, we really hope that you all remain safe and at home during these difficult times. And we are here today to provide you with an interesting session held by industry experts on the digitalization of the hospitality industry. You will be able to participate in the debate, as we want this to be as interactive as possible, and ask any questions by adding your comments directly under the live streaming LinkedIn post, and also on Facebook or YouTube directly in the comments if you are following the session from any of these two platforms. And without further ado, I give the word to today's host, Scott Dahl, who is the director of our new Masters in Hospitality Strategy and Digital Transformation.
Thanks, Carolina. Thanks very much. I'm glad everyone could join us today. I'm, first of all, super excited to have this opportunity to create this new program for Le Roche. It is an answer to a call by the industry for more specialization, and it's specifically geared to preparing people for, as Carolina mentioned, the digital opportunities that are cropping up in careers all over hospitality at this time. I'm going to introduce our two speakers in a moment. We have two fantastic speakers, both of them visiting professors in our upcoming program. The first is Max Starkov. Max is, I think many people know, a thought leader in the hospitality industry, specifically in the area of digital marketing. He's the founder of Next Guest Hospitality, one of the largest, if not the largest, third-party providers of digital marketing, customer relationship, search engine optimization, and those types of services to the industry. And so we'll hear from Max in a moment. And also very excited to have with us online as well today, Maurizio Caon. Maurizio is a data scientist. He is an expert in artificial intelligence, a professor at the University of Freiburg of Applied Sciences here in Switzerland. And Maurizio helps us with the digital, the database management, artificial intelligence, and machine learning class in the course. But before we do that, let me talk a little bit about why the degree has come about and what the reason for it is, and then we'll talk a lot about digital transformation in hotels. Okay, so we built this degree, as I mentioned, as a call from the industry. And the industry has been fantastic at preparing people for a long time for the traditional roles in hospitality. A number of our alumni are general managers at luxury resorts all over the world, and many of them are presidents of hotel companies. But the business has changed. 20 years ago or so, or a little bit more than 20 years ago, with the advent of online travel agencies and with the arrival of digital marketing really to our world, hospitality was changed forever. And so an extremely traditional industry component that is very dynamic and very change driven, that's all around the digital parts of the business. So for us, the Masters in Hospitality Strategy and Digital Transformation is three modules over the course of 2 semesters, and they build upon each other. The first one is the building blocks. So in that one, we'll talk about, including Mauricio's course on database management, we'll talk about hotel performance and KPIs, and additional things that are building blocks, like some of the other technologies that are affecting hospitality that are not necessarily in distribution and sales and marketing. The second module, we then start to weave a strategy with those. So advanced digital marketing, the course that Mr. Starkov teaches, is in that segment, as well as a number of different things that take those building blocks from the first module and help people manifest them into a strategy. And then the third module, let me show you these actually. The third module is the leadership module. And the way I like to explain that to people is we can make amazing plans, but once we involve other people, those plans typically get destroyed very quickly. And so how do we then take all these things that we learned in the first 2 modules, we build a strategy, and then now we incorporate people with it. So there's a project management course in that. And then what you find is that the rest of that module builds upon itself with all of the different components of leadership. So building a customer experience, so bringing people into it, your customers, people, then eventually building a business strategy and a marketing plan, building the human resource and the manpower piece, and ultimately you will have created a business in that third module from beginning to end with a group of people. Finally, there's a 6-month internship or capstone project at the end. And the reason we believe that, and I think for those of that are familiar with the Swiss education model especially, I believe it's very well suited for hotels because it's critical that not only do you know the theory, but you also know the application of the theory. And in many cases, those internships will help people overcome the obstacle of the experience required kind of a component for a lot of these careers. We'll find you an opportunity so that you can gain some experience so that you can then move forward in your career. Okay, so and then finally, there's a study trip to Paris. And the reason we choose Paris is very important. Paris is the perfect location for us for three reasons. The first one is we can visit traditional hotels. Some of the greatest hotels in the world are there. So we can take a look at hotels that have existed for a long time and see how those hotels have actually incorporated digital technology into their operations. How have they evolved? The next thing that we can see in Paris is innovation. And we see that in two forms, really. The first version of innovation is the one that we all think of, right? We think of 3 or 4 people in a co-working space with 3 or 4 people next to them, building an idea, 2 of them living at home at their mom's, 1 of them living on a good friend's couch as they develop an idea into hopefully a successful company. And there's a lot of that in Paris right now, especially in hospitality. And we have opportunities to visit some of those startups. The third component, also in innovation, is Accor's headquarters is in Paris. And Accor has an incredible institutionalized process for innovation, including an innovation lab. So it gives us a chance to see innovation first in the more traditional bootstrap startup sense, and then we get an opportunity to see how one company successfully turns innovation into an institutionalized process for a large company. Okay, so traditional hotels, how have they evolved? How have the roles evolved? If you think about it, this is the traditional hotel organization. And for a long time, higher education and hospitality has done a very good job preparing people specifically to work through this, to work their way up this opportunity to the general manager's position. But some of the things that we don't necessarily talk about so much when we talk about careers are the careers that are, first of all, above the property, right? So I'm going to eliminate those operational jobs and talk about now the positions that are really affected by digitalization. So at the property, you have revenue management as one specific discipline. And within that, both revenue management and digital marketing. And then we have the director of sales, right? And the actual generation of revenue, sales, and marketing. And then above that, there are a whole number of jobs that people can aspire to as they move in their careers. And this degree would really prepare someone to not necessarily move into the path of general manager as a choice, but potentially to move into above property leadership in one of the commercial disciplines like sales, digital marketing, revenue management, et cetera. Okay. And now the other thing that's happened as the business has evolved is there are incredible new opportunities in hospitality that are outside of hotels. So now you have these jobs that really, as you look at the whole landscape, there are distribution companies, there are marketing agencies, and there are technology providers, all of which have incredible opportunities for people with careers that are not necessarily, again, in that traditional career structure that we've always kind of addressed with hospitality education. So with that, I'd like to actually ask Max Starkov to give us his thoughts a little bit on how that's fragmenting and what's happening with technology and some of those careers that have popped up outside of traditional hospitality.
Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. And actually, I'm very excited about this new program because in my nearly 40 years of hospitality technology, distribution, and marketing experience, I have seen how our industry has evolved from a real estate industry into a high-tech industry. And if you look at the slide, digital technology is indeed everywhere in hotel operations, in hotel marketing, in hotel distribution, in customer relationship management, and of course in reputation management. And so there were times, and actually those times were until, I would say, 10, 15 years ago, when our guests at our hotels experienced a better environment, better services, better technology when they come at a hotel. Typically 3, 4, 5-star hotel provided better everything compared to the homes of people that came as our guests. at our hotels. That's no longer the case. Our guests are more sophisticated from a technology perspective. They have better technology. They're very savvy as far as digital technology is concerned. And when they come to our hotels, they feel that they have stepped back into the past. And this is a huge issue for our industry. Simply, we have become technologically irrelevant. So this is where this new program is at least is trying to fill in the gap, fill in the knowledge gap in our industry, and create, I would say, hotel technologists and hotel digital marketers who can move our industry ahead, so that again we are able to service our highly, I would say, technology savvy, digitally savvy clients, which find us, not prepared for the modern times. So this is one of the challenges: is how do we transform our industry from a real estate industry into a next generation industry powered by the latest technologies, so that we understand. I mean, we have so many hospitality programs around the world, including here in the United States. I mean, I teach at NYU, Cornell is next door, and so forth. I mean, together with Professor Scott, we have I have been guest lecturer at Lausanne and so forth. Most of these hospitality programs teach traditional hospitality education, and of course, I would say core disciplines that are needed in our industry, but very few of them pay attention to the next generation technology and to what's coming next. I mean, at a typical hotel, we're talking about a 4-star hotel. The hotel uses over 200 technology applications. Who at the hotel understands those? Who at the hotel is even remotely prepared to negotiate with vendors, technology vendors, selecting the best possible application for the hotel? And this is where there's a huge technology gap. The same happens in the field of digital marketing, where the two main OTAs, Booking and Expedia, spend over $12 billion in digital marketing every single year. And they're leaving hospitality in the dust. I mean, combined, all of the hotel companies on planet Earth spend less than $1 billion in digital marketing. Compare this to 12 billion spent by just the top two online travel agencies. So hotels need to learn how to engage, how to acquire, and how to retain their guests with limited resources, being much smarter than the OTAs. And they have one huge advantage on their side. And this huge advantage is that they know, hotels know their product, know their destination far, far better than any OTA on planet Earth, or bed bank, or wholesaler, or tour operator on planet Earth. And this is a humongous advantage, which allows with using smart digital marketing with the limited resources that any hotel has or any hotel group has, to really outsmart, I would say, the OTAs, and boost direct bookings, and ultimately win the best guests. So that's where this new program will help students understand how to do that.
Thanks, Max. I think I mean, that's right on. Probably most people watching don't know. I grew up in the revenue management discipline in the hotel. I graduated from hotel school in 1986. A lot of these opportunities that we're talking about didn't exist. .com came about in 1993. So 1986, there was none of it. But I was at the right place at the right time. And as a result, I was able to get a lot of skills from training from those major companies that we're all familiar with. I was able to attend a lot of Marriott training, and because I worked at a third-party operator, I could go to the Marriott training and the Hilton training and kind of develop my own best practice as a result of seeing that. But I was grown within the hotel company. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, the opportunity that exists is there's still not that outside training. There was no opportunity for me to go to school and arrive there with a career advantage. And yet what we're talking about kind of, I think, gives people a leg up in those opportunities. So if you wouldn't mind, talk a little bit about some of the newer skills that a revenue manager would have to have today that no one made me have those skills. Let's put it that way. What's the new stuff? What do people need to know?
Well, I mean, the new stuff is that, especially now after the crisis, and the crisis will be over, that's for sure. I mean, we have been through so many crises, and each time it has been the end of the world in hospitality. That's at least that's how it looked like. But we have overcome each crisis, and we will overcome this one as well. But this crisis has put the end of the Excel spreadsheet as a revenue management tool. That's the end of it. And the main reason is that, on one hand, distribution has become so complex. No longer the typical customer segmentation that we know in our industry, business travel, and then manage and unmanage, and then leisure travel, and all of the different segments and key markets that we divide our customer base into. This is down the drain. This is no longer applicable in the old-fashioned sense, I would say. So it has become extremely complex. How do you engage? And if you can move to one of the next slides, I think that I have a slide there. Yeah. So this is the typical path, customer digital journey, if you will, of our guests, from the moment that they start in the dreaming phase, the planning phase, and then they enter into the booking phase and experiencing phase, and then sharing phase. So there are 5 phases of hotel stay, if you will, planning. And how do we engage, acquire, and retain our guests in this very complex, I would say, environment? So that's why traditional revenue management requires a major help. And this major help comes from artificial intelligence. It comes from a revenue management system, software applications, which use as much as 200 different data feeds, if you will, from past data, of course, from real-time market conditions, real-time rate shopping data from your competition, and so forth. Of course, citywide, all the citywide conventions and the likes, but also taking into consideration in real time what is the sentiment data. How do customers perceive your hotel? To all of the other different data sources, which only an artificial intelligence powered backend, like Ideas revenue management system, like Duetto revenue management system, can crunch all the numbers and then give you the best pricing recommendations for each different room and for each different customer segment. So unfortunately, as we speak today, only 5% of independent hotels use a revenue management system, which is, the rest use Excel spreadsheet. But I believe that now with the current crisis, this is over. So a marketer, a revenue manager at the hotel needs to know those applications, needs to be able to function with this application, needs to be able to manage, control, read the results, take into consideration the recommendations, and excel basically using those revenue management systems of a new kind that are already existing in the marketplace.
That's a perfect opportunity for me to next introduce our next guest. but it gives me a chance to talk a little bit about the degree, and that's that it's very specific, and it's really important to understand this is not a technical degree. I'm going to introduce a gentleman in a second that's going to maybe make you feel like it might be slightly of a technical degree, but the reality is it's a leadership program. And as Mr. Starkov mentioned, it's really critical that someone who's going to be a leader understand all of these different components. And I think you gave the example perfectly. How can you negotiate with that vendor if you don't understand what service they're providing you? How can you contemplate rebuilding your website without understanding how long things take and what they should cost and things like that? So
yeah, it is a technologist,
critical,
digital technologist type of a degree. And there's a difference between being a software engineer, being a technical person, and being a technologist. Technologist is someone who understands the business applications of technology. And that's what I hope that this program will educate the younger generation in order to understand technology, its uses, and definitely how they fit into the overall, I would say, infrastructure of the hotel.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect. It's a perfect way you described it. Sometimes I use the example that in all of these different things that we're teaching and all of these different technologies, we want to make sure that we give the people that complete the program enough knowledge to be dangerous. And what I mean by that very specifically is there's a web and online and mobile platform development course, but this is not going to turn you into a web designer. There is all these different components, including the one that I'm going to talk about next, which is the artificial intelligence and machine learning course that Dr. Caon teaches. And it's really along that same vein that it's important to be able to manage all of that disparate data. And I think quickly, because we get offered new sources of data almost on a daily basis. And the big challenge for a revenue manager, in my opinion, hasn't necessarily become what data to analyze, but the reality is identifying what data is not useful and to stop analyzing it, because too much of it is paralyzing. So with that, I'd like to introduce our other panelist, Maurizio Caon. Maurizio is, in my opinion, one of the most elegant speaking technical people in the world, because I can understand him. I find that to be great, and I think what he deals with is a science at a very high level. But I think his approach is really to make it very approachable for people. And so, Maurizio, I was wondering if you'd reflect a little bit on Max's comments in terms of all those different data sources and some of the stuff that we're actually doing in the course to help people deal with that stuff.
Thank you very much for your introduction, Scott. And yes, what I think is brilliant about your proposal of this new master course on digitalization is that, as Mr. Starkov has already mentioned, is to make the future leaders in hospitality ready to understand what is at stake. So what are the possible applications? What are the opportunities that can arise from an intelligent use of technology? Because disruption, so disruptive innovation will never be brought by technology itself, but just from the intelligent use and application of those new technologies that can allow you then to actually reach your end, so to achieve your goal, but doing it in a new way that can change the market. So it can enter from the lower layers and going up to the most sophisticated users. And the idea is, in particular in this course that you mentioned, is to provide the opportunity to have a first hands-on experience with data analysis, but not just using the standard approaches based on classical statistical methods, but using machine learning without requiring the users to know how to code. Indeed, the new trend is to make technology democratic. And that means that all people should be able to access technology, even the most advanced algorithms like the machine learning, in particular like neural networks. I think that everyone heard of, but doesn't know how it works. Then the thing is, since we know that the best applications come from the creativity of the people, it's not really given that those people are tech people. And that's why it is important to make easy to access, so accessible and democratic technology, because then the real people who can have this new perspective on the current situation and find the opportunities for change will enable that transformation. And the idea is to use tools that now are existing, such as RapidMiner Studio or KNIME, which allow with just drag and drop of icons to build your process, so your data analysis process, leveraging the most recent technologies in machine learning. So that's also what I think the new leaders in hospitality require, to understand how these things work, not because then they will have to use RapidMiner Studio in their everyday business and analyze by themselves what's going on. No, to understand how you can make a streamline, so you can use how you can streamline data, what's the value of APIs, what's the value of good data, and also to understand how to talk to the tech people in order to coordinate and manage appropriately the your tech project, so your innovative project, and then also facing the actual problems you could have in trying to make these small but anyway real experiments with data. They will also allow you to have a more clear vision of how you can build your strategy upon these technologies, because just the person who can really understand how technology works can then really have the vision that can allow to make a, we can say, a strategy that can drive the innovation in a feasible manner, not just in a profitable, but also in a feasible manner.
Cool. So I think there's total agreement. I think Max said Excel is going away. I completely agree with that. I think it's probably, unfortunately, Max, for you and I, it's never going to fully go away. You're going to walk into a hotel once in a while. You're still going to see Excel, I think, probably for a very long time. But at the same time, I heard you say, Maurizio, that in this world of data, there are tools that we still will be able to keep that control. And I think that's critical. I think that if you're completely dependent upon your data scientist to give you information, then if your data scientist doesn't know the question to ask, you won't get the information that you're looking for. So it's critical to understand that. And one of the places where it really manifests itself a lot in hospitality is in innovation, as you mentioned. And what's happening is there's a lot of fantastic technology that's out there, but there's not a good enough understanding in the hospitality industry leadership community, so that technologists are coming to us with solutions instead of us going to them with problems we want solved. And I think that as we grow a little bit in the leadership category, I think that we're going to find as we arm a generation of leaders with a better technological understanding, I think we're going to find that they will be better at interfacing with the technology world and really incorporating solutions into our business that we want, as opposed to someone coming to us with something that they can do and us trying to figure out a place to implement that solution or that technology. So it's once again an opportunity, or once again a place where I think leadership comes into play on it. Max, were you finished?
That, for example, in the master, that's the best way to have a first experience. Why? Because usually people tend to avoid to go technology, in the sense that sometimes you are just afraid of talking about mathematics, statistics, and coding. Then if you have this safe environment like a master where you can just try things, then you can experience that, and you see that it's not that as scary as it sounds. And once you can overcome that barrier, then you will be, I think, more keen to start developing projects based on technologies.
I think you'd be more comfortable with leading people as a revenue manager, especially as the discipline evolved. My first general manager, when I was a revenue manager, had come up through food and beverage. And so whenever I didn't want to talk to him, I just threw a bunch of very, very complex terms at him, and he would go like this and he would walk away. But then I got a general manager. I moved to another hotel, and there was a leader who understood my business. And I will tell you, it made my job more difficult, but I think it also significantly elevated the level of revenue management in the hotel, because there was someone that could challenge me as a leader. He didn't have to know everything I was doing, but he was able to have an intelligent conversation, as you mentioned, and really hold me accountable for my responsibility, because he had, again, that dangerous level of knowledge, so that I couldn't just pull the wool over his eyes with a bunch of scary terminology and that sort of thing. That's a perfect analogy. Max, I'm going to change the slide unless you were. Is there anything else you wanted to say to the slide?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
We have a question coming from Facebook from Matthew Mios. In fact, I think I can show it here. Oh, wonderful. So he's asking how our technology knowledge from before the crisis is going to be still relevant after the current crisis.
That's interesting. Max, why don't you take a crack at that? And I have an answer too, I think, but why don't you take a crack at it, and everybody will take a run at that one.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would say that technology before the crisis evolved around one main issue that we had before the crisis, especially here in North America, which was labor shortage. There was 1 million unfulfilled positions open in hospitality in North America. That was until February, the end of February. Now we have 1 million people furloughed or laid off from hospitality. So it's exactly the reverse scenario, where we don't have jobs for many hospitality, I would say, employees and so forth. So how would technology change? There's no doubt that the current crisis has postponed automation, robotics, AI, I would say, entry and proliferation in our industry. There's no doubt, simply because the labor shortage, which was incentivizing all of the self-checking kiosks, all of the self-ordering kiosks, robots cleaning the rooms because there's a shortage of housekeepers. That's no longer the case, and I would say that it has postponed the advent, if you will, of next generation technology by maybe 6 months, by 8 months, but that's it. So I would say that after the crisis, technology will come back with a vengeance. And the main reason is that efficiency is at stake here. Second, liberating people from dangerous, repetitive, mundane tasks is another reason for technology to come to your hotel or any hotel. But the main reason is our clients. Our clients during the crisis will become even more technologically savvy. And the main reason is that they stay at home, they use all of these remote tools, all of the cloud applications out there. And actually, after the crisis, they will come to the marketplace, they will become again our guests at our hotels, and they will be even more technology savvy. They will know more applications simply because of spending long hours at home, trying to entertain themselves or trying to find new solutions and, let's say, new remote working, I would say, applications and so forth. So this will accelerate, I would say, our clients will be the main reason for acceleration of technology adoption in our industry. And again, they will come even more prepared, even more savvier than before, and we have to respond, and the industry has to respond. So that's my answer here.
And Maurizio, let me give you an opportunity to answer that question as well.
What I think is that so technology won't change much between before the crisis and after the crisis. I think people will change much. So as also Mr. Starkov has already mentioned, in particular, in this case, you can see your customers. But I think this is also a great opportunity, like to have a crash intense course for everyone working in the industry to catch up with technologies. It's like, I don't know, really a mandatory course that everyone has to take. And now you have even the time because you are closing anyway. So probably that's maybe make the good out of the bad in terms of way of thinking. But what I think is that it's maybe being aware of how embracing technology of course, in the opportune way, can make the difference in your business model. Probably that's the first really impact experience that this crisis will bring along, and which maybe can make many people change their minds about integrating digital technologies in their business.
I think that's. I think you're right. I think people will change. I think there's a great opportunity right now to for everyone to re-engineer themselves. If you've gone home for several months, you can come back with a whole new skill set. To be honest with you, when you come back, which is very true. I also think one of the opportunities that's going to present itself right now is very similar in terms of re-engineering ourselves, but I think it's an opportunity to re-engineer our business. For anyone that's currently operating a hotel today, if you have a server-based local property management system, this is your time to change. If you have 4 occupied rooms in your hotel, it's very easy to do that transition. It's not difficult. If you're closed, it's really easy to do that transition. And there's no excuse if you have a legacy revenue management system. Oh, my history is going to be ruined. Your history is garbage anyway. Change it. Yeah. Take a look at some of the technology providers. Hospitality is an amazing business. And if you watch what happens in hospitality, it's like any other business, but then in everyone's core is a little bit of an innkeeper. And so where is that coming up? Well, it's coming up in the form of hotels staying open to be able to accommodate healthcare professionals that don't want to go home and possibly make their family sick. There's all kinds of things happening like that. But guess what? It's happening in technology as well. Look at the majority of technology vendors. They know that their customers in hospitality, they know their customers can't pay their bills right now. And so what's happening is a lot of collective and collaborative effort there. For example, there's a relatively small revenue management software provider called Room Price Genie, and they're offering free subscription to their product from now till the end of the year. It's a really cool product. It gives a pricing recommendation. It can function parallel to almost every system. Well, why not try out that product if it's free? You've certainly got time to work on it right now and learn it. So there's no reason not to. So I think there's an opportunity for us to re-engineer ourselves as people. And I think those of us that are still fortunate enough, quite frankly, to be working in hotels today, we almost have a responsibility to do the same thing with the business and say, okay, the business has a lull and a break right now. And what can we potentially do with our suite of technology tools? But I tell you what, if you've got servers, you've learned that it doesn't work remotely. And so if you're not at this point dealing with some cloud technology on the majority of your important systems, this is your chance to fix that with minimal pain. So that would be my other piece too, is that if you're not on the cloud by the time this whole thing ends, I think you might want to really take a look.
Scott, there is a very, I would say, there will be a very seamless transition after the crisis, because I believe that any investments, like capital investments in equipment and so forth, will be put on pause after the crisis, simply because there are no revenues, or revenues are yet to come. But cloud-based applications typically charge a small amount per room per month, which means that all of this technology expenses will come from the ongoing cash flow that will be generated. So many people will think twice before reinvesting in this server farm, if you will, at the hotel, into this on-premise based property management system, for example, and will switch to cloud-based systems simply because A, you can work remotely via your smartphone and so forth. B, they're much cheaper to implement and much cheaper, and the ongoing fees come from the ongoing cash flow. So in this sense, I think that the crisis will accelerate the adoption of cloud technology.
I absolutely could not agree more. I think you're absolutely right. There's no reason to make an upfront investment that's not necessary. Someone else does the maintenance. Right now, those hotels have no problem whatsoever. But if you are a legacy PMS system and your server goes down, good luck getting somebody who wants to come out and work on it right now. I mean, I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned. Yeah. There's a question actually from Martin Hosick. Great question. Does LaRoche work with any tech providers? And the answer is yes. Yes, we do, Martin. We work with all of those ones that you mentioned in your list: Muse, Duetto, and Oki. And it's really, if you look at those guys, the best way to measure this is go look on LinkedIn at any of the leaders of those companies. And almost all of them openly say right in their personal profile that they're looking for people. They're in a constant state of looking for people, because right now their main source of people is hotels. And some people make the transition into the technical environment and some people don't. Whereas someone with some technical skills has already self-selected and already proven that they have the ability to understand those things conceptually. So in a way, they're kind of lined up to help us, first of all, because it's probably the biggest category whose need we're meeting. And also they're very, very interested in influencing the hoteliers of the future. So those will be some of our internship providers for sure, for the people that choose. We'll talk about these paths in a moment, but people that choose that technology path, those would be perfect opportunities for internships, as well as a large number of other companies as well. One other thing I thought of in technology before we move on past that question is there is a lot of technology now that's booking oriented, including some technology that's using AI to personalize booking, and it's transaction cost driven. So if you can imagine, if you have almost no transactions, perfect time to implement and really get a good understanding of that technology so that your booking engine is nice and personalized and everything is implemented when the business volumes start to come back. So I think that's the big thing. I think right now we've got this lull and there's an opportunity to take advantage of this time and invest in our futures as an industry, and we probably should. So, okay, so if there's no other questions, Caroline, I'm going to just, we'll keep moving forward. Let's at least move off of that slide. That'll help us.
Question from Jonas on Facebook. He's asking, if travel starts to be an issue, can we think of a new technology to be implemented to create a virtual world? That's very futuristic.
I tell you what, I'd actually like to address that differently and hear your guys' comments. I think it's the other way around. I think there's an immense entrepreneurial opportunity available right now for technology that helps us deal with situations like this. In other words, imagine an artificial intelligence application that all of the airlines subscribe to that could show us a heat map when something breaks out in a certain area, so that we know, okay, there's flights from here to all these places. So those airports, we need to be careful. But it's really okay for you to take a staycation in your own town right now because you don't have a problem. So I think as we move into the next situation like this, because I personally don't believe this will be the only one that we face globally, I think there's an opportunity for certain technology providers to potentially help us understand a better version than just shutting down the world every time we have to stop this from moving around. So I think it's not a virtual world. I think some technology to help us still have our world is what I would like to focus on. How about you,
also, many museums, many attractions created virtual versions of themselves that you can now visit while you're, stuck at home. You can visit some of the major museums around the world virtually, and you can take a tour there and enjoy the riches of the museum, for example, on your computer, on your iPad, and so forth. And so this is something. I mean, it's all technology. This is all technology driven. This virtual reality, if you will. And I believe that there will be more of this, even as teasers, especially for destinations, for example. Here's what you will see. Coming to our hotel. Here is what you will see around the hotel, in the destination, and you can virtualize all of this and really create a very appetizing, if you will, reality that will make people, get off their couches and travel and come and visit you.
I have seen some amazing augmented reality applications recently that are like that, Max, where you can put yourself in those locations and stuff that are just that are really, really super cool. How about you, Maurizio? Let's take the more technology futurist approach. What do you think when we come out of this on the other side? What about the virtual world?
Yeah, I did also some research in it. The virtual worlds are interesting, of course. I see them more as an opportunity for experiencing new forms of art rather than replacing traveling, because so far we are very limited in the number of senses we can involve, and we can really, how we can say, yes, they can leverage in creating these experiences, in the sense that so far even the best headsets that we can have for virtual reality. They will just rely on vision and, of course, audio. And that's very limited compared to having a real experience and using all our human senses. In particular, we shouldn't, I think, forget about taste and smell and just even like temperature, so touch experience. So I think we can. I think it will be very interesting to have more of research in how we can enhance experience, but replacing being somewhere, it's still not there. And since we are far from this kind of simulation. What you said, so using this as a teaser is obviously an opportunity, or as I mentioned before, like new forms of art, in the sense that you don't want to replicate what you actually could experience just traveling, but you could maybe create experiences you couldn't have in the real world. Like where I really see the advantage of using virtual reality. And but for example, one interesting application we made, it was for those people who cannot travel a priori, in the sense that they have, I don't know, impairments for mobility, or they are really in very serious conditions, maybe living in a hospital. Then these kinds of technologies could bring them those worlds that anyway they couldn't experience.
Yeah.
And it has been even shown, for example, that if you use this kind of approaches, like for example, just having a huge window in a hotel room, giving nature and trees and these kind of things, helps to speed up the recovery.
That's fascinating. That's very cool. Okay, so I think that it's the world going forward, I think, definitely changes. I think there's an opportunity to learn things. I think, Maurizio, you made a really interesting comment about the other senses, and I think for all of us right now in our current environment, it's probably really easy to understand that, and the simple difference of participating in an online meeting where people are showing their images versus not showing their images, and you think of the different level of communication you get just from seeing people's faces when everyone's going like this. You don't need sound to know that they're accepting what you're saying, but unfortunately, when there's no picture, you can't do that. So it just becomes exponentially more with the other senses, with touch and smell and the other things that we're used to. And I'm looking forward to, as someone who's not so tuned into the future as you are, looking forward to seeing us be able to pull some of those pieces in. I think that's going to be fascinating and fascinating for the travel industry as well. I think you're right. So let me, I want to switch gears a little bit now. Oops, hold on a second. Let's take this and talk just briefly about kind of the third pillar that takes place, or that we're looking to as an outcome from this program. And that's really in the areas that we've been talking about, and that's with startups and entrepreneurs and innovation specifically. If you look at all of these companies here, these companies have huge opportunities for people that are understanding these specific set of skills that we're talking about. But in many cases, there are as many people creating individual opportunities with that as well. Mr. Starkov founded one of the largest digital marketing agencies in the world. But I've heard recently of a number of very small niche digital marketing agencies in specific cultural regions, or doing specific types of hotels and those kind of things, that are people really having an opportunity to start their own business and control their future with these same skill sets. So a lot of different technology opportunities and a lot of different innovation opportunities or startups. So just real quick, and then we can kind of have some conversation about this as we go through and wrap up. But the degree, and really what we're trying to prepare people for, is 3 different outcomes, related but different. The first one is we want to empower traditional players to manage their hotels in the current environment. So if you have the desire to be a director of revenue, a director of commercial sales at a hotel, digital marketing expert, if that's your thing and that's your desire in the traditional business, this degree will prepare you to do that with current technology. It will arm you to move forward in your career at a rapid pace for all the things that we talked about. The second opportunity is those new players, the people that weren't available, the companies that were not available for me when I was contemplating a career in hospitality. So it's the online travel agencies like Booking.com and Expedia. It's data providers like TravelClick and OTA Insights. It's all of the different property management companies that were mentioned in Martin's question earlier, revenue management technology and those kind of things. Keep in mind that the current president of Uber was running one of these companies before he was tapped by Uber. So hospitality is really a source of people for other industries as well. And I think it's no secret that luxury brands have started to tap hospitality students in their customer experience. But if you think about the digital sales landscape, hotels have been sold online for a really long time, and people have developed a lot of those skills. And so industries that are just really now getting to create an online experience, they're tapping our most experienced people and pulling them into other industries as well. And then the third one is exactly as I mentioned a moment ago, those startups and entrepreneurs. So as you go through this degree, we will put you in contact with all of these different technologies and also leaders in all of those different technological environments. And it gives you an opportunity to sort of see if maybe there's something that you would want to, if there's a direction that you would want to potentially, forge out on your own. And we would definitely help you get in that direction as well.
Yeah, I mean, Scott,
okay, so sorry. Yeah,
if we can just chime in here.
Yeah.
The main thing, for example, the last column, the startup and entrepreneurs. All the successful startups, if you dissect any successful startup that became a company like Uber that you mentioned, and Dara, the CEO who was, Expedia CEO before that, is
Max, pronounce his last name for me.
It's difficult even for me.
For those of you that don't want to talk about, Google it. Anyway, it fills the screen.
Yeah. So, but the main characteristic, I would say, the common denominator among all of the successful startups is identifying an industry need and filling in an industry need, solving an industry need. And the main here, what this program provides is identifying. First of all, you have to know the industry in order to identify a gap, to identify an industry need. You cannot come from the outside and come with a how shall I put it, ready to wear type of a industry need, because you simply don't understand the industry if you don't have the right education and so forth. So all of the hospitality related successful startups, they solve a industry need. And that's where my first internet startup, travelbreak.com, that's 95, 96, one of the first online travel marketplaces, and Well Media Technologies, which was an online booking engine for hospitality, and the last one, Next Guest, Scott mentioned. All of those three startups, we solved very concrete, dire industry needs. And this is where I believe that this program will provoke students in order to understand the deficiencies in our industry, and hopefully will help them identify needs that need to be fixed, and will equip them with the tools to fix those needs. And so that's why I firmly believe that the last column, startup and entrepreneurs, will be the most popular column, if you will, the most popular outcome of all of the students in this program.
I think that's probably the case. Definitely based on a number of the people that I'm talking with that are considering joining us. An interesting question from Niels Bernal, and I think it's a very good question. He says, "How important is the sales team, general managers, and all the time to know about how much occupied room costs and empty room costs, especially now?" I think it's super important. I actually would take that one step further, and I think that some of the concepts that we'll talk about in this program are becoming more important in the industry, but are really kind of on the front end. And one of the most important ones has to do with net RevPAR. A lot of the different distribution options that we were talking about earlier, they all have very different costs. And so hotels can actually look at improving their profitability by changing their pricing, but you can also look at changing your profitability by helping your distribution costs. So I think that occupied rooms and empty room costs is super important, but I think also having a much better specific understanding of what it costs us to sell rooms is also going to be important in that sense. I think they're all critical. And the other thing about the sales team that I would say is We've been in a really good time for the last 10 or 12 years in the industry. The rising tide raises all ships, they say, things like that. I'm sure every culture has a cliche. But I'm also going to tell you that in the next couple of years, if things are all slow to recover, our sales professionals are going to become some of the most important people in the building once again. And the ability to make relationships and steer business, and when all things are equal, convince someone to use my hotel versus someone else's hotel, is also a very, very important skill that, again, when things are really, really good, we take them for granted. But I think we're going to find that groups, meetings, the MICE segment is going to be important. And there's certain people that do that really, really well. And I think that we're going to raise the way we value them is going to change significantly in the next year or two.
Yeah, I mean, Scott, if I can chime in here, I mean, this is where technology comes into place. For example, utilizing business intelligence like the Nolan Group, a corporate group seller at the property. Let's say you're the corporate group manager at a particular hotel. You can proactively build relationships, proactively sell your product at your hotel, your group product, as opposed to waiting for a request for proposal to come one way or another to your property and so forth. But talking about the distribution costs, at Next Guest, we achieved a 4.5% average distribution cost, including all of the digital spend, SEM, SEO, of course, email marketing, CRM, all of the social media marketing, all display advertising, and so forth. All of this, including our consulting fees, the average cost of distribution was 4.5% across our client portfolio, while the average cost of distribution through the OTAs is 20%. So what they mean is that by directing more of your reservations through the direct channel, you can save your property millions of dollars or euros a year. That's the difference between 4.5% and 20%.
And the lovely thing with that, Max, is you have a more direct relationship with your customer, so you know them better, and you're not having to raise their prices in order to make more money. And so you're not stressing the value relationship that you have with your customer. You're just distributing your rooms in a more smart way.
Yeah,
so
I mean, the main thing is that you have you can direct customers are much easier to convert to repeat guests than, let's say, OTA customers that come to your hotel and then a month down the road they're already bombarded by the OTA. Come and stay at that location, at this other hotel that has given the OTA better terms than your hotel. So repeat guests is what makes profitability in our industry. I mean, if you look at that, less than 10%, 10 to 15% of guests on any given night under normal circumstances at independent hotels, for example, are repeat guests only. 10 to 15%, that's it. While in the same time, you have close to 60%, 60% of repeat guests at Marriott, at Hilton, chain-wide. And that's the main difference in why those major chains really exploding around the world, and they're making a difference. And the main reason is that they focus on retaining their customers, and they do this through their loyalty program, through their technology, and definitely focusing on the direct channel.
For sure. Carolina, are you going to jump on? I think it looks like you had a question for us.
Yes, we have a couple more questions coming from Facebook. A question from Antonio Benitez. He's asking how aligned are the new and traditional players with the new startups and entrepreneurs, since that may represent a direct competition, for example, Airbnb versus traditional hotel players?
That's a good question. I think that as far as the startups go, one of the reasons that there's more activity in Europe, this segment of the startup or this cycle of startups than there is in the United States, is because of the different makeup of the portfolios. In the US, 80% of the hotels are branded. So they're not necessarily in play for an individual hotel to consider changing technology. Whereas European hotels, 80% of hotels are independent. So all of them can consider any possible solution because they don't have any rules against it. So I think there's a little bit of a difference there in terms of alignment. So what's happening, in my opinion, is the alignment is taking place outside of those really big players in many cases as a result of some things that got discussed today. The cloud and APIs make it possible for 5 or 6 smaller providers to create one enterprise solution and really not have to have a big player involved in that. Where it's different, if you're at Marriott, theoretically, you're looking at individual components at the corporate level for your technology suite, but individual hotels aren't necessarily contemplating them. So I would say that there's definitely alignment of the entrepreneurs, but it's aligned with the independent part of the business more than anything else, really. And as far as alignment with Airbnb and those, it's interesting. I think there's some alignment, right? There's some stuff happening really at the operational level that hotels are getting now involved in helping people in their neighborhood with Airbnbs by doing the laundry and distributing keys and different pieces. So I think we're going to see more and more opportunities to create partnerships and synergies and those kind of things. But I really think the big alignment is in smaller, really more nimble organizations. I mean, digital transformation in hospitality was brought on by Expedia and Booking.com. That's what happened, right? All of a sudden, the internet blooms. Everyone starts selling rooms there. The hotel companies really didn't do it as well as the OTAs in the beginning, and so we lost share. All those kind of things happen. But I think now those guys are now big guys, right? And Expedia, for some people that know, has had some difficulties lately because there are other online travel agencies that have more niche approach chipping away at them little by little. So I think it's a lesson kind of just in business in general that once you get really big like that, you are kind of vulnerable to these smaller providers because you're just not as nimble as they are. They can make decisions more quickly. They can implement stuff more quickly. And so there's an evolution, you know?
Yeah, but also, Scott, I mean, we have to look, we have to use how shall I put it, everything in perspective. Airbnb, with all of the publicity and all of the buzz, Airbnb has today on their, not today, before the crisis, on their platform, 50,000 hotels. That's it. Booking.com has 2.5 million hotels on their platform. So let's put this in perspective. In big destinations like New York City, London, Paris, Airbnb satisfies between 8 and 10% of travel demand. That's it. So in this sense, yes, a lot of publicity, but Airbnb overall is a very small player as far as hospitality is concerned. They're a very big player in alternative accommodations, in vacation rental. They're the biggest competitor to Booking and the Booking alternative accommodation product. HomeAway, VRBO, which is Expedia, Flipkey, which is TripAdvisor, but ultimately they're a very small player as far as hospitality is concerned. And again, they work with 50,000 hotels. That's it. They don't have the technology, the hospitality technology, the revenue management technology, and so forth. So they have a long way to go to become a true competitor to, let's say, Expedia or Booking or Marriott or Hilton, for that matter.
Yeah, I did an extensive study. It was before all of this, the decline that we've recently experienced, but did an extensive study on Airbnb in Paris. And there's actually 67,000 Airbnb listings in Paris. It's actually more than there are hotel rooms. And yet, since they've come online, the Paris market has continued to grow very consistently at a faster rate than the rest of Europe. So I think in many cases, we're finding that Airbnb is it's able to accommodate sometimes excess demand that we weren't taking care of before, but it's not one for one that every single person that stays in Airbnb is a lost customer for a hotel. There's no doubt about that. It's not having the same impact. That's a great point. So Caroline, I think you had one other question, but in the meantime, I'm going to deal with one that came off of the chat that I'm looking at. It's from Akshita Ghosh. Great question. Where are revenue management systems going to be of vitality to the mice? In my opinion, revenue management systems are going to be the things that give us confidence to take future business that we didn't take 6 months ago. we're going to be able to, the people with better revenue management systems are going to be able to anticipate time periods when they need more business, and they'll be able to use those systems to make those decisions. Whereas I think people that don't have the benefit of that technology, they're going to have to still rely on bookings and those kind of things to tell them when they're busy and not, as opposed to technology. And they're going to be slow on the uptake. I think they're going to be the ones that don't benefit from the mice business. So specifically, it's going to help us understand that we should take it, and then it's going to help us maximize revenue around those peaks and valleys that are created by the mice business. So those two, they work hand in hand. They cannot be separated. I totally agree. Carolina, did you have one more question, or if not, I'm going to ask my. Oh, yeah, you do. Here she comes.
We have two more questions. In fact,
Okay.
They keep on coming. So one question from Walid on Facebook. He's comparing the services of the online travel agencies versus the traditional ones, particularly in this current situation. He's saying that people are getting really disappointed with online booking because they couldn't get any real help because of their booking cancellations. And those that book with traditional travel agencies got better services and home earlier. Do you think that more human interaction and involvement will be necessary in the future, even that the sales cost will be higher because of the labor cost according to certain countries?
I actually hope the different. I hope people realize that we're in the hospitality industry and we'll give you better service than a website. So that's my own personal feeling. So I think it will be required. I think that they've learned a lesson with that there has to be human interaction. Some of the things that I've tried to do with navigating, voice menus and things like that, they don't have an option for the question that I need answered today because things are different. So I think, yes.
Scott, Scott, if you remember when Expedia launched, there was no telephone number on Expedia.
That's right.
They did not believe
you couldn't talk to a person. That's right.
They did not believe that people would need to call someone. And again, of course, they corrected their ways, but I believe that the current crisis will lead to two things. One is the further demise of traditional travel agencies. Brick and mortar will die. They're dying a long and painful death. Let's say United Kingdom, there were 7,500 travel agencies. Today, there are 4,000. Within a year, there will be less than 3,000. In the United States, there were 36,000 travel agencies 20 years ago. Today, there are less than 9,000. So, but brick and mortar will definitely, because of this slump in travel, the death will be accelerated for many of those brick and mortar locations. On the other hand, the big players, like we talk about intermediaries, but also the big chains, Accor, Marriott, and so forth, they understood that they cannot handle a crisis like this. They don't have enough staff. Their call centers are pathetic. Their technology is old-fashioned. So I believe that AI-powered customer service will come in big, I would say, very fast, and a lot of investment will be done in exactly customer service powered by artificial intelligence, with the chatbots, call centers that are backed by artificial intelligence, and that databases that can answer 60, 70, 80, 90% of the questions, can make, of course, reservations, can, of course, make cancellations and so forth, and only a certain percentage will be kicked up to the human department, if you will, to handle the most complex questions. But I think that the current crisis will, unfortunately, and we're already seeing like an avalanche of closures and permanent layoffs among the brick and mortar travel agency and divisions and agencies. But AI will save the way for the big players. That's what I see.
May I add one point, complementary point on this?
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with everything that's been said so far, and I want just to add another comment, which is we don't have to talk about the difference between online and offline, in my opinion. Here we are, in particular, what the person who asked the question, so Walid Abudiwan, who, in my opinion, is talking about a flow in the user experience, not with reference to the means, to the media used to connect, because you could implement a service to enable online booking, which anyway ensures a great user experience. Take as reference Amazon for retails. Amazon has a great user experience because they have always someone listening for you. They are very supportive. They have very quick reimbursement procedures and shipping back procedures, and they are competing online. So it's not a matter of opposing online, so technology oriented, and offline. It's how you want to design the experience of your customers, which is different, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Max, your comment about bricks and mortar travel agencies, it comes back to kind of basic marketing, right? Their unique selling proposition, it's still based on an old time. Their unique selling proposition was they could print an airline ticket and you couldn't. Well, that doesn't work anymore because I can print an airline ticket. As a matter of fact, I don't even need to. I just carry it on my phone now.
Yeah.
So I think those that don't re-engineer themselves are dead in the water.
Yeah, the order takers.
No way.
Will be gone.
Yeah, they'll be gone. I think you're right, because why? It's quite frankly easier for me to sit down and do that myself than to do it with someone else, and it doesn't really provide an added benefit. Therefore, they don't really have a selling proposition that they're banking on anymore. Those that are getting into curating more specific travel and those kind of things, I think they have a niche for a little while, but it's not going to be that long before, as Maurizio mentioned, we can use artificial intelligence to create travel really based on people's online behavior and profile before we even talk to them. So it's only a matter of time, quite frankly, that personalized vacation can also be delivered to you in a very automated fashion. And then I think those guys will have to reinforce themselves again.
Here, Scott, there's something that Maurizio said that I believe is very important, is that technology can enable the same experience, whether you go online, whether you call an 800 number, and so forth. And actually, there shouldn't be a difference in the experience, because if all of this is powered on the back end by AI, then you can truly secure the best possible experience through all available channels.
Well, and we've been talking about the omni-channel experience now for a couple of years, but that's really what it is. And it's that research in the fact that consumers gain confidence from an organization that portrays itself the same way. I have to, I have friends that have two personalities. They're not my best friends. I like it when someone's consistent. It's important to me as a person, and I think it's important as companies have personalities as well. So just one other one. This is an interesting one, guys. And I'll throw this one out there too. How reluctant might venture capitalists be to invest in non-B2B cloud services within hospitality?
Very.
Yeah, I think so. I think
very
so too.
Reluctant, and the main reason is that in their minds, this space is already covered. Meaning, you have the two major OTAs. Expedia, Booking, already they have conquered this the distribution, third-party distribution. You have the types of Airbnb and alternative accommodations already taken care of. So that's the B2C in alternative accommodations. You have Viator and Get My Guide. Get Your Guide, the Berlin activities player, which are B2C. So basically, all the different sectors in the industry, in the travel industry, have already been covered by major, well-entrenched, well-financed, if you will, powerful B2C players. So I think that B2C in travel, as far as new successful startups, will be on hold for a while. But B2B, definitely there's so many gaps. There's so many opportunities, simply because, again, our industry in general and travel in general is so far behind where the actual consumer is. We're far behind our consumers. It's like servicing aliens coming from another planet, servicing them in shacks with only cold water. You know, that's how we are.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is I think that .com taught venture capitalists that just because it's .com doesn't mean it's a winner. So just because it's on the cloud doesn't mean it's a winner. And I think people will have to take a look at the individual business idea really. And if it's a sound business idea, if it's cloud-based, great. If it's not cloud-based, great. I think that'll probably be what drives it. So guys, we've run into a little bit of extra time actually. Thanks very much. It's been a really, really fun conversation. So I'd like to actually, let me start with you, Maurizio, kind of give you an opportunity, one last word on digital transformation and everything we've talked about today.
Oh, I think that's it's already nice to see the interactivity of the people who are following us. I think there is a very remarkable curiosity and interest in these new technologies, at least from the people who are following us. Maybe they're following us for that reason. And I think that those people are the ones who are going to make a difference in the future, because digital transformation is happening anyway. So if you have this kind of mindset, then probably you are the one who's positioned to be competitive in this new market. And I think that Roches is offering this opportunity. So I would just like, you know, if I were a student and I had to choose a master, and I said, okay, classical master degree, hospitality, yeah, you have everything that you learned so far, maybe more specifically, and now you have a new kind of, really one of a kind of master, where you can even develop some complementary skills in order to make you competitive, not just also in hospitality, but in general in management. Then it's up to you to make this choice. Maybe it would be a bit more, you know, how we can say, you're less familiar with this kind of topic, but that's, in my opinion, I see that not just as a challenge, but also as an opportunity.
Okay, cool. And how about you, Max?
Listen, it's a very, very simple choice. Just imagine that you're musically inclined and you have the opportunity to study classical music or rock and roll and to become a rock star. Guess which one is, how shall I put it, makes you more money today? Which ones makes you more interesting to employers, to fans, to colleagues? Of course, being a rock star. That's what digital transformation is. You become up to date, you become modern, you become sought after. That's what it is.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. I love both those answers. The only thing really that I would add to that is I think that's an era of specialization. And I think if you really want to get ahead, I think that, you've got to find a specialization that's going to be suitable for you to get out of bed for the next 30 or 40 years. So it's a difficult choice sometimes. But I think it's a time period that requires specialization in order to really to be successful in your career. I think the true generalist gets left behind by some of the specific technologies that we're seeing. So that would be the only thing that I would add to it. Carolina, you want to jump back on? So I think with that, guys, gentlemen, Max, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to spend time with you. Mauricio, thank you very much. Always a pleasure, really fun. I hope that everyone who was watching enjoyed it and had an opportunity to hear something that they thought was worth their time. And we're really glad you were able to join us. And Carolina, let me turn it back to you and we'll wrap it up.
Yes, so I just want to thank all the people who has been following today our very first live stream on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. If you want more of these sessions coming, please put it on the comments. We will be very happy to organize more around different content and topics. So we are all ears here. If you want more information about these new masters in digital transformation, the rock and roll of the hospitality industry now, you can go to our website, legos.edu, and you will find all the information about the master, the syllabus, and also our contact details to have a one-to-one chat with one of our counselors. And also keep an eye on our social media because we have more webinar sessions coming. Also about the future after the COVID-19, about careers after all different programs at Les Roches. So we look forward to seeing you there as well to join the debate. And Again, we send you greetings to all the countries all over the world that have been participating in today's session. Thank you very much, and stay safe.
All right, stay safe, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Stay safe.
Bye.